with an expert, a thought leader, a doer in the realm of innovation for the built environment. My name is Jeff Echols. I am a senior advisor and the head of marketing for Shadow Partners. And this week I'm in Atlanta because we're kicking off our 7th annual Shadow Summit. This is our opportunity to bring together the influencers, the doers, the people that are thinking about and driving change in the built environment. So for the next few days, you're going to get encore presentations of Shadow Shorts, and all of these conversations that you see for the next few days will be with people who are actually speaking and leading discussions, setting the tone, setting the agenda for the built environment headed into 2024. So enjoy this conversation, and I'll be back with you with another live Shadow Short in just a few days. Hey, welcome back to Shadow Shorts. If we've never met before, my name is Jeff Echols. I am a senior advisor and the head of marketing for Shadow Partners. And every weekday, I bring to you a conversation with an expert, a thought leader in the realm of innovation for the built environment. And today, I am joined by, we were just having a great conversation backstage. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation, not only from a doer, but also a thinker. We're going to get into a lot of, I think, a lot of thoughts about what the way things should be, but also how things are. So I'm joined today by Roger Krulak. He is the founder and CEO of FullStack Modular, and FullStack Modular just moved to Connecticut, but Roger's joining us from New York today. Roger, thanks for joining me. Glad to have you here.
Jeff, so happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation and looking forward to the conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Before we went live, we were talking about this disintegration of construction, and there's so many things that we bounce back and forth, and I think you're right on. But when we think about disintegration of construction, what do you think about? What are you seeing out there, and then what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, I mean, the word is interesting and provocative. I mean, disintegration. But what I mean by disintegration doesn't mean that it's all disappearing, which it may one day. But what I'm talking about is that we have created a system by which our design does not manifest, is not planned and organized in a process that is logical or timely or organized in a way that most everything else that is created in the world, manufactured, is. So we now have, architecture as a subset of what goes into the built environment, and then we have mechanical engineering and structural engineering and civil engineering. The reality is it's all one thing, and it's not organized from a process perspective in any way that we've divided it. So what happens is we've divided it into 16 subsections and all of the professionals that are involved in it, which we need, in a way that is completely disorganized and disintegrated, meaning that the pieces and parts are not organized in a way that allows any kind of industrialized construction or manufacturing in a logical fashion. So what we try to do at FullStack is to embrace the built environment and try to move it into an industrialized construction process.
And when we were talking before, I mean, we touched on housing. I mean, that's a big issue, as we know. We were talking about housing at universities, workforce housing, et cetera. What do you think when you think about modular construction, or you think about industrialized construction, whether that means robotics or, there's lots and lots of different layers and avenues for that. But what do you think is the greatest impact possible, or maybe flip it around? What's the greatest need? But when we think about this, what's out there on the horizon that we need to be paying attention to?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the big picture, it's pretty clear, right? In the US, depending on whose statistics you read, we're roughly 7 million housing units short in the United States. And it varies as to location, et cetera. But we talked about doesn't matter who you talk to. If you talk to the government of California or San Francisco or New York or Raleigh, North Carolina, or New London, Connecticut, the problem is we're lacking housing. We're lacking housing stock, and our population is growing. And there is a huge effort to sort of move manufacturing back to the United States. And as a result of that, workers need to be here, and they need to be proximately located to where they're going. Or, you want to go to a university, chances are you don't want to sleep in a tent or in a hotel. At the same time, like, you can just Google articles on housing needs for colleges all over the United States. They're not there. So we are failing as an industry to provide the market's needs. And so the question is why? And the need and the opportunity, I think, is the question you asked, which is what can industrialized construction do for this problem? And what it can do is it can create an efficient process to create product to meet the needs of the markets that you're talking about. That's what it can do. What it can't do is it can't speed up permitting. It can't speed up, financing of these things. It can't provide the potential deficit created by the current methodology of creating, say, for instance, affordable housing. It can't fix all of those financial engineering problems, but what it can do is it can provide an opportunity to have predictable costs, greater throughput, quality, sustainability, improved workforce, less of a need for specialized trades, et cetera, so forth. They can do all of those things, but it's not a magic cure for all of the woes that we have as a country as it relates to housing needs. But it is a tool that is growing in use, and it's growing in use out of necessity. There is no way we're ever going to catch up with the current methodology for creating projects. When you think about I think about the current affordable housing game plan. It is fee focused. The people who do it incredibly well, but the reality is that the building at the end of the day has no value, at least for 25 years. And is it sustainable to think about building buildings in environments where the asset has no value or very small value because it's been, literally the revenue associated with it doesn't cover the costs of operating it. And they're paying fees on top of that in order to manage it, which they have to do because it needs to be managed and it's complicated. So, we have so much to fix sort of beyond industrialized construction. At the same time, it is a tool that is utilized in everything that's, we basically use on a daily basis, except the built environment.
Sure.
And everything that goes in, I'm just going to take one more thing because I'm waxing, big picture. The reality is that almost everything that goes into the built environment is manufactured, but the built environment is not.
It's an interesting paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you're talking about or questioning the sustainability of the building having no value, et cetera, is there an impact? We'll just take modular construction as a subset of industrialized construction. Is there an impact when a building is designed for modular, when a building is constructed through modular and in the factory and then assembled on site, et cetera? Is there an impact on that sustainability, that sustainability question that you raised simply by using modular construction?
I would say that it's an opportunity for all of that. So the interesting thing about building in a factory is everything is inspected, right? It's not like 10% or 3% or whatever it is. B, you can choose what you're using in the building in a way that is much harder to do in a conventional, design, bid, build process, because in a design, bid, build process, you're buying out basically all of the materials plus engineering of, some described performance criteria that you've created, and then you sort of leave it to the electrical contractors or the mechanical contractors to give you whatever they can for the price that you agreed to pay, in a way that's going to obviously not necessarily be accretive to the value of engineering, et cetera. And we as a country, and frankly as an industry, have created methodologies in order to try to measure those. LEED, ILFI, just a whole bunch of them. And the question is the methodology yielding? And I don't have an answer for that. I'm not the sustainable engineer, but I can tell you that what we can do in a modular situation is we know where we're buying stuff from. We know the source. We know we can do all kinds of things to track the effectiveness of that sustainability, and we can do it in a way that is concerted and even, because we've had a number of conversations with the Department of Energy, et cetera. We can buy it all made in America. Like, that's really hard to do in a conventional construction project. But if you say to FullStack, it needs to all come from the US of A, we can do that. And that's not so easy. Actually, they haven't even funded a conventional project because they can't figure out how to ensure that everything comes from the US, but we have that opportunity. So the fact that we're utilizing a manufacturing process allows a lot more flexibility and ability to adhere to sort of sustainability efforts on every level.
So what's the one question that is not being asked enough about either modular or take it, to the 30,000 foot industrialized construction? What are we not really talking about or asking about that we should be?
I don't know if it's an asking about rather than embracing the fact. I mean, okay. So to me, the issue is that we are as a society, pretty unrealistic about what the state of the nation is, right? And the state of the industry is. And the reality is that even though, construction is 13.5% of the world economy, and it's not keeping up either here or anywhere else in the world, I think the conversation is not how do we solve the problem and what do we use as tools. The whole system for creating it is obviously broken. And the question is what do we do to fix that, and what tools can we use for it? And I think that's the conversation that's not happening. And modular industrialized construction is one piece of it. It's not the only piece of it. There's a lot of pieces. But it's the conversations I have with development teams and architects, et cetera. I mean, it's a huge conversation. I go speak all over the place, but still, the amount of people that are actually listening, they're going to have to, and they are, but they're really not. They're not embracing it in a way that is valuable. Although you do hear, I hear about a developer who start their own modular company every day, and I wish them all luck. And I think the more, we have unachievable market need. So the more that happens, the better it is. I hope they all succeed, but I do think that the questions the questions that normally get asked are relatively uninteresting. I mean, for instance, like the quality of modular construction. Go to the factory and take a look. I mean, and then go to a high rise being built in, I hate to pick on it, Fort Lauderdale, because I was just there. Really? I'm not watching the building. The concrete is so out of square and so not plumb, and I'm sure the floors aren't flat, and they're going up Mayan ruins as a precursor. And I mean, of course, that's not all the things, but it is noticeably problematic. The quality of construction that's going in, you can see it. And at the end of the day, I'm sure it's going to be beautiful and it'll be fine. I'm not saying they won't be safe, but it is astounding to me as somebody who sort of grew up in the construction business and great grandfather was a carpenter to watch It's scary. It's a little scary. The idea of being able to have a quality assurance program and check everything that's going in and making sure that it's dimensionally accurate and that all of the systems are organized in a way that is understandable, achievable, and follow and able and possible to follow. It doesn't. It's not. It's not happening. It's not happening, and we should be thinking about that.
Yeah. Well, and I think another question that people ask, and we run into this when we talk about robotics and construction and 3D printing and construction, other avenues, if you will, or other areas of industrialized construction. And it's not unique to construction, obviously, but what about the people? What about the jobs? Is this robot going to replace X number of people from the workforce? When we talk about, your world specifically, modular, and this is a big question, right? Because it's not only jobs, but it's beyond, but what's the impact on jobs when it comes to modular?
Yeah, it's such a good question. You still need people to build the environment. I mean, to me, look, automation is a process, and it's not necessarily robots. Like automation is a process. Like, how do we organize this, what already we mentioned, disintegrated process into something that is much more integrated? And once it is integrated, are there opportunities to increase productivity? And the answer to that is yes. With AI and robotics and automation, there is an opportunity to increase productivity. So now I like to look at the two things that I've said. Well, one thing I've said and one thing that I sort of had mentioned, which is the need 7 million units of deficit. I don't care if you get 3 times more productive, you still don't have anywhere near the productivity needed in order to meet the problem. And in addition to that, one of the biggest complaints that you hear, whether it's true or not, from government officials or affordable housing builders is it's too expensive to build to meet the So what if you can increase productivity of an individual that makes a very good living wage at $50 an hour or $75,000 a year or $100,000 a year and can afford a place to live, et cetera. Now you can't decrease the costs of that construction by exporting it because you have now defeated the process, right? And the purpose and bringing back. However, if you can increase the productivity of that person by threefold, then you're not eliminating jobs. You're increasing productivity to meet the market needs. So I think if you're talking about an isolated economy where you've closed off the market, maybe you can preserve jobs, but we can see sort of what's happened to every industry that tries to do that, right? So in my mind, it's an opportunity to do exactly the opposite of what they're claiming, which is you're going to take away people's jobs. You're not. You're actually creating people's jobs, or it's all coming from Thailand, or China, this is an opportunity. We should be embracing it because it's a good thing to do, but also because it's valuable, right? So I'm not worried about. I want to be retired long before the day when we have too much productivity to meet the market need. But we are so far from that that should be our last. And by the way, everybody else is doing it. So we're in a world economy. We can't pretend we're here by ourselves anymore. So and if we do, it's going to be pretty bad. So I think that we've sort of, it behooves us to be intelligent about how we do all this stuff. And it's much easier, frankly, to do in a factory than it is to do on a construction site, even though there is plenty of construction site technology that is helping a bunch of things, safety and speed and tracking and all of those things. It's doing incredibly well. In a factory, it's much easier. Integrating technology is pretty simple.
Yeah. We get at Shadow Partners, the questions that we get when we're we're advising companies, et cetera. Industrialized construction is one of the big, I would say, top three topics that we were asked about. Of course, AI is actually that'll come out in tomorrow's newsletter. Talking about AI, but industrialized construction is a big topic of conversation. People wanting to know about it, how to get involved with it, the impact, and and beyond. So this is a really timely and interesting conversation. And I would say if you're watching this right now or listening to this right now, you say, "Hey, I want to know more. I want to know more about industrialized construction. I want to know more about modular construction." The first thing you ought to do is go to fullstackmodular.com. That's the website for Roger's company, fullstackmodular.com, and learn more about what they're doing, and maybe reach out to Roger, find out more about how they're working. And then the other thing I would say is that if you want to go deeper into conversations like this, later this year in October, the 24th through 26th in Atlanta, we're going to have our 7th annual Shadow Summit. That's what we call it. It's a time to get together and talk about problems and figure out problems and set an agenda for moving forward. So shadowsummit.com is where you can find out more about the summit. Tickets are going quickly, and it is a purposefully intimate affair. There are only 200 seats in the auditorium, so those will quickly run out. But you can apply for a ticket at shadowsummit.com, and we will certainly have conversations and a panel on industrialized construction at Shadow Summit this year. Roger, this has been a real eye-opening conversation, and this is another one of those that I would love to continue this for about an hour, but we call this Shadow Short, so we'll have to wrap it up. But thanks for what you're doing, and thanks for sharing your thoughts and your experience here.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate the conversation and looking forward to continuing it whenever you are available.
All right. That sounds good. I appreciate it. And for all of you out there, thanks for joining us today. I'll be back tomorrow with another conversation from an expert or thought leader in the realm of industrialized construction. I was telling Roger as we were getting ready to get started, I was looking at our guest list for this week. It looks like a lot of conversation about change and leadership and change management. So a lot of the people side of the equation this week. So I'll be back tomorrow at noon Eastern with our next Shadow Short. Until then, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.